Hi, hello. Welcome to the episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is April the 22nd, 2025. Hopefully this episode finds you well, in good spirits and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Today was a good day. It treated me well. I felt good about it, so we love that. We woke up. We took our ass to work. Work was fine. It was busy in the sense of like it was just work all day, but not too overwhelming or anything like that. Even got some help, so that was also nice. We always appreciate that. Work went well. Let's see. After work, we went to the gym. Gym was overall a great session. I will say, like, it felt like I didn't push it as hard on my weight training, which kind of feels bad. But then I also look at it in the sense of like, hey, this isn't a heavy day. This isn't a heavy lifting day. I got to stick to my plan. So overall, in that regard, sticking to the script, it did feel good. And then overall, the cardio made up for it, So that was good. That was solid. We love to see it. After work, I got to pick up a new pair of Hoochie Daddies, 3-inch inseam. So we're getting very provocative with it. We love it. They fit well, so I love that. If anything, they were a little baggy, so I guess we kind of like that, So that felt good, Now, we love that. And also, I had a friend actually kind of taking it back to work, who, was maybe even like a part of the inspiration for me, like really pushing it and getting into the gym. He had came up to me and he just said, he's like, "So this is what 7 days a week looks like," and I was like, "Huh? Yeah, man, yeah." Because it's warming up a little bit, so I got the zip up hoodies on. Just a shirt, so I feel like people are seeing a little bit more. Also, I'm in this state right where like I'm glad everything fits me pretty much the same. I feel good about that. But like my shirts feel a little bit more flowy, so I've noticed myself like tucking my shirts in more. I'm giving like dad, I'm giving gym coach, but I do love it. It's kind of a little bit of a slight swag change for your boy, a little tempo switch. But yeah, no, overall today was good. It was solid. It didn't disappoint me. So yeah, we love to see that. We love to hear it. Hopefully you love to hear that. I don't know. But yeah. Let's see, a bit of a food corner though, not too much. We did have the chicken and rice last night, but I made it a little bit of a twist. Of course, this was internet inspired, and I'm sure a lot of people are gonna hear what I did because I told some of my friends I did this, and they all kind of like winced and asked a couple of questions. But I made peanut butter kimchi. Y'all, it was so good. So I took like maybe 2 or 3 scoops of kimchi, put it in a bowl, put one big scoop of peanut butter, and just kind of mixed it in till like, what's the word? I want to say emulsify. That might not be the right word, but like, stirred it up till it felt like it was nice and good. Put it on top. Ooh, it was so good. It was such a nice add-on. Like, I generally love kimchi. It's got this spicy, soury kind of, savory taste to it. Plus, it's just like, veg and stuff, which is just a nice add-on anyway. But adding the peanut butter, which I also, it's worth noting, I had crunchy peanut butter. It gave this creamy, nutty like flavor, and it almost made it feel like almost like a Thai dish, if you will, like a fusion. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a big supporter of fusion at a restaurant. I don't feel like paying for that, but I am a slop god. Y'all know this. So fusion at home, I'm down. I turn this whole thing into a melting pot. Okay, that's how I rock. That's how I roll. Overall, that was a good meal. So I felt like mentioning that. It was, worth yapping about. But yeah, I mean, that's all my personal news right there. So let's go ahead and do our startup and let's get into some news. I will say a bit of an aside, a little gaming corner. Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered dropped today, came out, so that was cool. Excuse me. Sadly, I probably will not be playing it due to budget and time constraints, but that was a really big nostalgia game for me. If you're not familiar with Elder Scrolls and you like RPG fantasy, this is an amazing game. It's definitely worth it. I can already tell you that right now. I just remember playing that game and getting so immersed into this world and being like, man, so this is Elder Scrolls. Like, this is what it's all about, huh? And I put so many hours in that game, and then we go on to play even more Elder Scrolls Skyrim. So, like, honestly, like, even if I'm not playing it, it's one of those things I'm just happy it exists. I'm happy that it's out. It's not just a rumor anymore. Very cool. We love that. So, yeah, feel like mentioning that up top. All right, let's get into some news, some real news from the Hill. Supreme Court appears inclined to rule for parents seeking opt-outs for LGBTQ-themed instruction. The Supreme Court appeared inclined Tuesday to side with a group of parents objecting to their school district including books with LGBTQ themes in its elementary school curriculum. Across more than 2 hours of arguments, a majority of the justices sympathized with the Montgomery County, Maryland parents' claims that the lack of an opt-out option substantially burdens their First Amendment rights to freely exercise their religion. What is the big deal about allowing them to opt out of this? Conservative Justice Samuel Alito asked. Montgomery County, which serves more than 160,000 students in the Maryland suburbs of the nation's capital and is one of the country's most diverse school districts, began introducing LGBTQ inclusive books in its elementary school language arts curriculum at the start of the 2022 to 2023 school year. The books include titles like Born Ready, The True Story of a Boy Named Penelope, which is centered on the author's transgender son, and Love Violet, which tells a story of two young girls in a same-sex romance. The book has a clear message, Alito said of one of the books, indicating he had read several of the titles. Oh, he really got immersed in the work. And a lot of people think that it is a good message, and maybe it is a good message, but it is a message that a lot of people who hold on to traditional religious beliefs don't agree with. Okay. Initially, the school board allowed parents to opt out their children, but the county rescinded the option beginning the following school year. So yeah, I mean, this got talked about, but more or less is, it looks like it's going to fall across, the whole party line, so we have a majority, a conservative majority. Looks like it's probably going to go down something like a 6-3 situation. So, in a lot of ways, I do feel like this is a bummer. Most definitely. The liberal justices definitely said, well, this is potentially opening, more of the Pandora's box to say, hey, well, we can opt out of our, gay or transgender teacher, or, maybe they say or do something that we don't feel is okay, and like our students should be able to hear. So, but at the same time, I kind of feel like, yeah, that's a hypothetical, but we also are already there, sadly, as a society. I feel like that's already a thing I've heard happening. I mean, granted, they're trying to say, hey, we don't want to see more of that at the Supreme Court level, so maybe this is a good thing. But I will say, and this is rarely a time where I play quote-unquote devil's advocate here, because this is solely an opt-out thing, I'm not as upset about it. I do think, though, that it's like, you can just read the book. You can still have your beliefs. It's like, it's not being impressed upon you. This is just literature, and you can get to see a different perspective. And not to mention, no matter what, you're still going to do, the work on it and to show and prove that you have the literary analysis. I think those are the words I'm looking for, to show that you comprehend and understand the material. So, I think all these books, establish, maintain that concept for education. So I don't see this as a problem of being like, hey, you need to read this. I just think it's odd and funny because, I mean, this is me being anecdotal or whatever, but like, I remember being a kid and having to read, The Adventures of what is it, Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer, whatever the fuck, and then The Great Gatsby and all that. And these are both books that, like, you know, have the N word in it, make me as a person, I remember feeling really uncomfortable and really upset about it. But those are books that I had to read, and I had to just go, okay, you know, I see that, like, especially with, you know, the Mark Twain book, you know, Huckleberry Finn or whatever, this is being used for satire, blah, 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 blah. You got to see that and understand that it's like, you know, of the time and all this other bullshit, yada, yada, yada. And you move past it, you get over it. But, like, I just feel like it is a strange change to kind of see this, but naturally it does fit the whole culture war fucking mentality. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not surprised to see this. I also want to add that I don't, like, agree with it. I wish it wasn't this way. But at the same time, do I think this is the worst thing that happened this year to LGBTQ rights? No, I don't. Maybe that's me speaking out of turn, of course. But, you know, so it goes, so it is. Definitely felt worth covering. I know that there's going to be another Supreme Court case coming up next week. Yes. Next week, the Supreme Court will hear arguments on the bid in Oklahoma to create the nation's first religious public charter school. So I imagine we're going to maybe get some insight on that next week, and we'll be talking about that then. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on from the order side of things. Let's talk about some fucking law shit. AKA, we're talking about some fucked up cops doing some fucked up shit. From The Independent. 2 Mississippi Capitol cops indicted for manslaughter after shooting a black man during traffic stop. 2 Mississippi Capitol Police have been indicted on manslaughter charges in connection with the 2022 fatal shooting of 25-year-old Jalen Lewis. Stephen Frederick Jr., a former Mississippi Capitol Police officer, and Michael Reinwald, an officer who is on unpaid administrative leave, were indicted by a grand jury in Hinds County last month. The men opened fire on Lewis while conducting a traffic stop on September 25th of 2022. Details of the encounter are murky as the incident report contained redactions, but Lewis's death certificate determined he was shot in the head. Though Frederick and Reinhold said they responded with gunfire in self-defense, the grand jury concluded it was not a reasonable belief under the circumstances, according to the copy of the indictment obtained by NBC News. Lewis was a father of a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Sorry. They go on to explain. The Capitol Police are a unit of the Mississippi Department of Public Safety. Their primary responsibility is to protect life and property in the boundaries of the Capitol complex. However, in 2022, Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves deployed a new task force to combat crime in the state's capital. Reinwald, Frederick, and other members of the Capitol Police were conducting a narcotics operation the night of the shooting. The officer saw a white Jeep Grand Cherokee run a red light and open fire after they tried to pull the vehicle over. So I want to stop right there. When do you see that? Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, oh, it's A-okay to run from the police or, continue to drive. But, like, why is it okay for them to then immediately put not just this driver in danger, but also the community in danger by popping shots at them? Well, we need to get this dangerous suspect off the streets. Motherfucker, you have all the power of the state behind you. If this motherfucker even gets away, you can get him eventually, safely. They chose to immediately act. And in this act, they're going to try to say by the end of it, when they gun a motherfucker down, when they more or less execute them, that this was self-defense. How do you get there? So I just needed to stop and say that right off the fucking top, because it's like, you got to make that make sense. And the problem is that there's a bit of a problem doing that. Now, granted, maybe the jury winds up actually saying, oh, okay, you're a cop and you're in the line of duty, you're protecting and serving and bullshit. But, like, when is that normal? When does that make sense? Like, this doesn't even make sense in the world of Grand Theft Auto. You get 2 or 3 stars for running a fucking light. They aren't immediately popping off at you unless you're, like, running over a bystander or something. Like, that is an insane escalation. I needed to say that shit. Lewis's mother, Arkayla Lewis, has previously said her son was followed by a white officer in an unmarked car when one of the officers shot him in the head during the traffic stop. Reinwald was previously indicted in January alongside former officer Jeffrey Walker on 2 counts of aggravated assault. The two are accused of using excessive force on a woman while conducting a traffic stop in 2022. The woman suffered a gunshot wound to the head. So this is a pattern. Like, why is this? Why is this okay? Why does this have to happen not once but like multiple times before we go, oh, okay, maybe these guys shouldn't have a badge. Maybe they shouldn't have a license because they're just using it to fucking kill people. I don't know. I mean, this is the thing. I'm constantly talking about these stories, bringing these stories up when I can, because, like, why? Like, make that shit make fucking sense to me. Try it, please, I guess, man. And sometimes y'all motherfuckers do, and I just get more fucking irate because it's like, oh, okay, so if you aren't super duper extra ultra compliant, then you deserve to die. That's essentially the defense, like more times than not. And I'm just like, oh, all right, cool. When also, it's worth noting that even if you are and sometimes completely compliant, you still get that fucking bullet in your goddamn brain. So, and of course, it was like, well, it's hard being a cop. It's so scary. Motherfuckers always have something, but it's just never enough. It's never enough. It doesn't bring these people back. So, here I am. Talking about this shit. I got no fucking choice. Anyway, and I also want to add too, there's still so many goddamn stories that I do miss. I will see a thing on the, when I'm going through the feed or whatever, motherfuckers like, these cops is busting down a fucking door and just fucking executing a motherfucker. That shit just be happening, But, I try to do my best to cover the stories that, hit the top and cover even the ones that don't. I still try to get, hey, I know I'm not perfect on that. But we have one more story that I wanted to cover, and then I'll go ahead and close it out for the day. We'll call it Tuesday on that one. But, yeah, let's go ahead and take our last break, and we'll close it out. Ooh, wait. Oh boy. Excuse me. Excuse me. Wow. From ABC News. Doomsday mom, Lori Daybell, found guilty in murder conspiracy trial. Now, on this one, y'all, I think I just want to read the whole thing. I think so. I think that's what we're going to do. Try to do minimal riffing. I do, at the top, want to reference last podcast on the left. They recently did just a full rundown on this couple, on this doomsday cult. It's also worth noting too, Mormon doomsday cult. I feel like that was something when we initially started covering this on this pod, I really wasn't as hip to, like I was aware of it, but I did the thing even that media does a lot of the time where they maybe mention it in an offhand sense that this was a Mormon cult, but it was so fringe that it wasn't even Mormon anymore. But like, really, when you get into the guts of it, that's why I wanted to reference that last pod thing. You really do see like that through that series. It really helped me, at least, to see it's like, no. This was Mormon through and through. Like, Mormon in and of itself, and I don't really want to rag, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum, but like, Mormonism in and of itself is a pretty wild concept to get your head around. And you can say that about any religion, but like, just at its core with fucking Joseph Smith or whatever, that's a whole wild ride. So the fact that like, someone like Chad Daybell is gonna fucking do some tricks on it, or, Chad Vallow, whatever the fuck. No, it's Chad Daybell. That's right. They got married and everything. The fact that Chad Daybell is gonna fucking just modify the shit, add like some D&D influences or whatever, and next thing you know, he gets a few more followers, he makes a few more shitty books. But like, once again, I think you have like the Mormons like insulating themselves from this as much as they can, and I feel like a little bit to a certain extent the media kind of helps that. But it is worth noting that this is a Mormon story. Like, just through and through. That's really what I wanted to kind of state up top before we just kind of get into it. But yeah, let's go ahead. Let's dive in. Lori Daybell, The mother, convicted of murdering 2 of her children in a so-called doomsday plot, has now been found guilty of conspiring with her brother to kill her 4th husband. The jury in Maricopa County, Arizona, was handed the case Monday afternoon before reaching a verdict Tuesday afternoon. Lori Daybell represented herself in the Phoenix trial. She did not take the stand or call any witnesses. Crazy that she decided to represent herself. That is wild. I mean, I guess you could say it's on brand for her and her zany ass. But it's also, I guess she was at least smart enough to, like, not take the stand. That's for fucking sure. But dubbed the Doomsday Mom, that's her old name, from the last marriage. Lori Daybell had maintained that her brother shot her then husband of 13 years, Charles Vallow, in self-defense in her home in Chandler, Arizona, in July of 2019. Her brother, Alex Cox, died from natural causes months after the shooting. She pleaded not guilty to conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Meanwhile, prosecutors said the shooting was a ploy for Daybell to get rid of her estranged husband so she could get his $1 million life insurance policy and be with her current husband, Chad Daybell, whom she married 4 months after the shooting. It's crazy that, please go look up a picture of Chad Daybell and then, like, realize that this was a guy through his Mormon spiritual riz, like, literally just overcame this woman, and she was like, oh yeah, I'll do anything for this guy. Like, this is the life I want to live. I want to be this guy's wife because then I'll be really powerful. And in a way, we've been married this whole time, cosmically throughout time and space, we've been together. So, like, this is my man, this is my new man, and I'm going to kill my current man for this man. That's wild. That is a wild ride, especially when you see this guy and realize he is not, how does one say, not a looker. Not that I'm one to talk. But anyway, let's continue. Sally Forth. Prosecutors further said she invoked their twisted religious beliefs as justification for the murder and gave her brother religious authority to kill Vallow because they believed he was possessed by an evil spirit they referred to as Ned. AKA, he was like, no, like, clearly, like, Lori is being wild. She's doing everything she can. She's being mean. She's being nasty. Like, I think the worst is about to happen. Like, things were getting so bad and it was getting so obvious that something was wrong. And I think he was, like, just figuring things out, to my memory, that he's like, yeah, no, I switched the policy. And they didn't know that. They thought they had, like, a foolproof plan and, like, he wasn't going to be aware and figure things out. But he was able to be like, okay, she tried to change my password or whatever. He was able to get his, in touch with somebody, get his shit changed. And that completely jammed up their money flow because they were really leaning on that fucking $1 million payout, which is sinister. It's fucking evil. Over 2 weeks, the state called more than a dozen witnesses, including Daybell's other brother, Adam Cox, who testified that he had no doubt his 2 siblings conspired to kill Vallow upon learning that his brother had fatally shot him. In her closing argument, Maricopa County Deputy Prosecuting Attorney Trina Kay said the evidence at the scene showed that Vallow was not shot in self-defense, but was executed in the scene stage. She recounted text messages sent from Lori Daybell to her husband, Chad, 7 days after Vallow was killed, discussing her now-deceased husband's life insurance policy. Kay said that upon learning she was no longer the beneficiary of the plan, the defendant messaged Chad that Ned probably changed it before we got to him. So essentially, then she became aware, and they're just dubbing this on like the evil spirit, which in their mind gave them credence to kill him, execute him for no reason because he was evil. He was evil. He was holding them back. He had, he was I forget the terminology that Daybell used, but like essentially he was like a negative person, a negative entity. He was always going to be evil. So like, we just have to eliminate him. There's just no other option. The prosecutor also discussed a text message the defendant sent Alex Cox days before the deadly shooting, in which she said they could be like Nephi, a prophet in the Book of Mormon, who God commanded to kill Laban. Lori Vallow wanted the $1 million, and she wanted Chad Daybell, and she and Alex used that twisted religious belief they had before, or they had so that I'm sorry, I'm butchering this. Beliefs they had so that they could kill the evil possessed Charles and be like Nephi, Kay said. 3 jurors who spoke to reporters following the verdict said the text message evidence in the case had stood out while they were deliberating. Which I can imagine so. Like, this is them being very candid and upfront as if no one is watching. Because they really thought it was never going to get to this point where they were going to get caught like this. But it's like, yeah, man, it lays it out pretty clearly. Like, they tell the story. The jurors said they had no knowledge of Lori Daybell's prior convictions, which were not discussed during the Phoenix trial. Members of Vallow's family expressed relief at the guilty verdict. I'm ready to move on, Vallow's sister, Kay Woodcock, told reporters outside the courthouse. This was thrust upon us, and our lives went into like a tornado for a long time, she said. Following the guilty verdict, Lori Daybell agreed to several aggravating factors in the case instead of having a jury make a finding on them. Among them, she agreed that this was a dangerous offense and that it involved the presence of an accomplice. When asked if she agreed that the result of her conduct, the victim or the victim's family suffered emotional or financial harm, she said, absolutely. She will be sentenced following another upcoming trial in Maricopa County, where she is further accused of scheming with her brother, Alex Cox, to kill Brandon Boudreaux, the ex-husband of her niece. 3 months after the shooting, Vallow Boudreaux called 911 to report that someone driving by in a Jeep shot at his vehicle outside his home in Gilbert, Arizona. She's pled not guilty to that case. Both Lori and Chad Daybell were found guilty of the first-degree murder for the deaths of her children Joshua J.J. Vallow, 7, and Tylee Ryan, 16, who went missing months after Charles Vallow was killed in separate trials in 2023 and 2024. Prosecutors argued that the couple thought the children were possessed zombies and murdered them so that they could be together. The children's remains were found on an Idaho property belonging to Daybell in June of 2020 following a months-long search. Now, if memory serves me correctly, there's been at least 2 times where we've talked about this in very scant ways. And once again, just post like that last podcast on the last series, I feel like I know so much more. I'm like, God damn. Like, because when I hear the term possessed zombies, it just seems like such a wild leap. And don't get me wrong, when you get into the guts of how they thought, like spiritually, religiously, it's still a wild fucking jump. But like, you understand the term zombies isn't like, oh yeah, I think my kids are going to slowly become, walking dead. Like, no, they mean that they're going to become like evil abominations. And like, Chad did the math, and according to his spiritual math, because he's like a double good guy, he knows all this shit. Him and Lori, they're aces. But like, you would just see whenever the narrative fit, well, guess what? This person is possessed by an evil spirit, and that's gonna turn them into evil people. And now we have to like kill them. Like, that is essentially the way this is working out. And it just gave them this license to do whatever the fuck they wanted. And they were always going to be right and always going to be justified in doing so. And not to mention that there was this pending apocalypse, hence the doomsday part. So it gave them the freedom to do this and not feel quote unquote as guilty, I think. I don't know. But like, no matter what, I don't want to sit there and be like, oh, they were just so crazy. Like, no. I feel like they were very coherent in what they were doing, and they bought each other's bullshit so they could do whatever the fuck they wanted and go hang out in Hawaii or whatever. Like, it's insane. It's wild, the jumps and leaps they took. It's a lot, but there's still a little bit more I wanted to read here to close it out. Lori Daybell is currently serving life in prison without parole for the murders of her 2 children. She has denied killing them. Chad Daybell was sentenced to death after being convicted of murdering the 2 children, as well as his first wife, Tamara Daybell, and now awaits execution in Idaho's death row. So y'all know I'm not a big fan of the death row. I'm still anti that, but goddamn, wild shit. So, I mean, we're not done with the story. There's still more to be, told here, which I was actually kind of surprised about that, like, there's still trial shit going on. There's still like end results to be seen. But I'm glad to in some way come back to the story with a little bit more information, at least personally, and feel a little bit more comfortable talking about it at least. So that's kind of nice for me. That's growth. That's evolution, right? I don't know. But yeah, that's where I'll leave it for today. That's going to be the episode. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon. Patreon.com/Isaiah News. Become a newsie today. Free ways to hit me up, IsaiahNews1@gmail.com. Feel free to follow me or the podcast on any of the socials. Subscribe to the YouTube. Follow on TikTok. Follow on Spotify or follow on Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening. Just keep up with the Joneses that way. Leave a like. Leave a comment. Sharing is caring. These are all ways that let's help out the algorithm, help me out, boost quote unquote my profile, if you will. So it's just nice to do. But I really appreciate you just listening, just hanging out. Hopefully I am a vibe in your life, and maybe you just put me on and you're driving around or you're vibing out, you're doing your thing. I like that. I like being in your ear in just a chill way, just a chill guy way, Totally not weird at all. Anyway, that'll be it. That'll be the episode. So thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for being a friend. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.